Hey folks, Pilot Mark here. Co-pilot Jimmy in his bed right there, snoozing. He's snoozing. He's exhausted from waiting for me to fly the RV-7 twice today and working on it and tweaking it and enjoying every minute of it. But he says just from watching me working on that RV-7, he says he's exhausted. So anyway, there's the RV-7 there. What a cool plane. To make a long story short, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos about this airplane, I received this airplane. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful gift, this airplane, from Model Aviator, folks. Mr. Pilot Adam and Ms. Heidi. And so I was wanting to maiden this plane. I wanted to maiden this plane. I've been waiting. I couldn't. I just moved to Bend, Oregon, a wonderful place. Couldn't find anywhere where I could safely take off and land this airplane. Nope. If I was going to fly the RV-7, there's the box for it right there. See that? RV-7. And so I could not find one safe place to fly the RV-7 in Bend, Oregon, except for a club situation, which is just more hassle than I really want to deal with, because I can drive 5 minutes, be at a beautiful park, and fly, and I'm meeting a lot of other local park flyers there. It's just so casual and laid back and informal, which I just love. Taking nothing away from the club experience. I'm going to do that eventually, probably this winter. But I'd like to have that be an option, not a necessity. So, since I could not find any suitable place to fly this airplane, I had to try and adapt the airplane to the places that I can fly so that it would be suitable. So I put the bush tires from the Hobby Zone Carbon Cub S2 on the mains here, after removing the beautiful wheel pants assemblies. Okay, I took the wheel. I took the original. I'm going to go underneath the plane here. I took the original wheel from this RV-7. Took the original wheel from the RV-7 and removed the tire, which was very, very skinny and very, it wasn't tall and it wasn't wide. Well, I removed the stock tire that was on the wheel you see now, and I took the Carbon Cub tail wheel tire off of its wheel, because its wheel was, the hole was way too small. The hole, we're trying to zoom in. I'm zooming in. It's not going to do it. It says I will not. There we go. So the hole on the Carbon Cub S2 tail wheel was too small for me to put on this tail strut here for the RV-7, and the wheel, and the wheel that came on the plane, the tire was way too small. So what I did is I retained the wheel, which you see center screen. That's the original wheel for this RV-7 Vans aircraft, and then I took the bigger wheel. So I used the wheel from the original tail wheel here on the RV-7. Used that wheel, but took off the tire, the puny tiny tire, puny for my needs, bush needs. Okay, and then I had just the wheel, and then I took the bigger and ideal sized tire off of the Hobby Zone Carbon Cub tail wheel and put it on this wheel. So the tire is Hobby Zone Carbon Cub S2 tire mounted on an RV-7 wheel. So we got that going on. That's what we did. And then we have on here an Eflite Maul 11x7 prop, two-bladed as you can see, and we have the Maul spinner. Why is that? Well, this airplane has gone from tragic to terrific, and the tragic is that I had a horrible crash this plane, totally pilot error. Was coming in on final approach. As I descended, my descending flight path brought me right smack past the rising morning sun, blinded me just long enough to crash the damn plane. Lose orientation completely, crash the plane. Didn't have safe bound up on the radio at that time. Now I've got it safe available on a switch if I want to use it in an emergency like that. It's there. I wish I had it there for this crash, because the crash wouldn't have happened. I could have flipped into safe, hit the throttle, and would have been saved. So I learned a lesson from that. No matter how good a pilot you are, maybe it's not a bad idea to have safe on a switch to flick on in an emergency situation. I'd rather have my pride bruised, LOL, from using safe than crash the plane. Okay, so anyway, so it crashed. And that was tragic. Broke my dang heart. So, and I have a video about that. You can see how many pieces it was in the video. So what happened is I turned the fuselage into a combination lawn dart and an accordion. The wings were not unharmed. Excuse me, the wings were not harmed. The empennage was not harmed. The canopy was not harmed. But the nose of the airplane, now this is a trip. The motor was not harmed, strangely enough. The prop was destroyed when it hit the ground real hard, and it might have been spinning somewhat too. So the prop was destroyed on the airplane. Okay, and then the airplane was in two pieces, very clean pieces. Now what happened was the plane broke. Let me get a pointer, which is going to be a pen. So here's what happened when I crashed. And again, you can look and see my video and see what the pieces look like on the ground. But what happened is the airplane broke when it hit the ground. Fortunately, the motor and the motor mount did not take all the shock, even though it was a near vertical crash. The landing gear were not damaged or even bent. So what basically appeared happened is that the airplane came down. Let's say this is level flying. This pen is the plane flying level. What came down kind of like this and hit the nose first like that, see? And what that did is it broke the plane from here. First I'll show you just where I broke it. Now you can see this. I'll show you the seam up close, but it broke the plane right here. There's a fracture that went from here, right here, up to here, over to here, and then up into here. And on both sides there's a break from the bottom of the fuse all the way up to here, right? And so the whole, and the canopy popped off, and then everything forward of my hand, everything up here broke off, right? From this point forward, all broke off. So what I did is, now see if we can really see this. You can see the seam good now if I get some focus. So I had good focus. Let me just about have it focus. There it is. You can see the seam right there. See it center screen. Right there, going up there, up to there, and it ends the break. See, you can see where the break went, where it broke, right down in there. We got too much light on the subject there, down in there, and then down to here, and then down to there. You can see it pretty well. So that's and the same thing on the other side. Very similar break on the other side, very clean. Now you can see here. Now this has been painted up in here. You can tell because it's darker. It's darker than the original paint on the cowling. Cockpit, rather. It's darker, but it's all right. It looks pretty good, actually, and when you're not filming it with the camera and the light. But right here, there's a piece that broke off of the top here. There's a piece that broke off of this section here, and you can see it here. The seam goes from there over to there and all the way around there. See that? Yeah, so this piece here, let me get down to the light. This piece here, that completely just broke off and came out. So I glued that back into place on the front of the fuse with Elmer's super glue, which I've had extremely good luck with. And then I used the same glue on the seam here. Focusing? Yeah, on the seam. Same glue on the seam on both sides. And as the pieces were glued, I used a masking tape. And I taped it, put tape on either side of the brake. And I put the tape on one side first and then pulled really, really, really tight and then applied the other end of the masking tape on the other side to put a bunch of tension, pulling this broken piece back and holding it fully in place. And you can see that's a pretty good, darn good repair, folks. It's hard to tell, but you can't, when you're looking at it without a video light and stuff like that, you can't even see it. Can we get in focus? Oh, gee, this way can get focus. There we go. Anyway, it turned out really well, folks. You can't hardly see it. Okay, and then here's what else. No, so I did that. I broke the spinner. I broke not the spinner, but I broke the prop. So the three-bladed prop that comes on this RV-7 seemed to me, in estimating, to have about the same thrust as this two-bladed prop from my maul. So I thought I'd try it. So this is the prop and the spinner from the maul. it works fantastic with this airplane. So my guesstimation that the thrust from the three-bladed smaller prop was going to be about the same as the thrust from the larger two-bladed prop. That turns out to be right. Turns out to be true. Yeah. Okay, so I had got myself a replacement prop. I glued the two halves of the fuse back together. I reconnected everything inside the airplane. Now let me show you. Now after I did that, it was glued back together. But I thought to myself, well, if the only thing I have holding this plane together, literally, is the glue on these two seams, one on this side and one on the other side of the airplane, if that's all I got holding the airplane together, that's not enough, structurally speaking. That's not enough structural integrity. So what I did is I did some reinforcing with balsa. I keep getting in the shadow of the lamp in my room here. So pull off that cockpit there. So what I did here, let's see. Okay, you can see, let me get my pointer pen. You can see right here, balsa reinforcement here. This is the brake. Here's the seam. The seam, the same seam we saw on the outside of the fuse runs, of course, on the inside of the fuse too. And on this side of the fuse, it runs right here. So on either, so I glued right across the seam. I glued balsa in there. Oh, I'm trying to get better lighting. Oh, since I had it in focus, then I had to move it. All right, folks. Anyway, so I glued balsa, and there's a hollow. You can see that there's a hollow place there. That's a good video right there. You can see center screen right here on the bottom. See, so the fuselage is made so it comes up like this, then it goes in like that, and then up like that. So I put reinforcement balsa everywhere. Down here where the seam is, I got balsa reinforcement and tons of glue. Then on top of here where the seam is, more balsa, more glue. Same thing here in the back. Another balsa there on the top with glue. So that's on both sides. The seam is super reinforced from the inside with glue and balsa, as well as the seam itself being glued. And then I've got this Gorilla Tape here, which is fantastic stuff right here. This is an additional reinforcement, heavy duty, going across this where the seam is here. The seam is here. You know, goes like this. Where the seam is here, we got the Gorilla Tape. Same thing here. Gorilla Tape up over the top, super reinforced and strengthened with the Gorilla Tape on both sides. So that's all that I did to get this plane ready to fly. Yeah, repaired her and put it together, painted her, and made sure I had the structural reinforcements that I needed to make it as strong as it was to begin with. And then I had all the all the fun challenges of trying to get her to fly. I had to redo my CG because the tires are bigger and heavier, and they create a lot more drag, wind resistance, so that makes the plane fly a little differently. While the stock tires were very small and narrow and aerodynamic, particularly aerodynamic because of the beautiful wheel pants on there. So taking off the aerodynamic wheel and tire setup and putting on the non-aerodynamic setup, had to change some things, had to change my CG up a little bit. Then, as I mentioned before, I had to upgrade the rear tiny tire to a Bush tail wheel tire and wheel to go with the Bush mains tires and wheels. And okay, so where I fly this, so I was able to turn this successfully into a plane that'll fly, take off and land where I fly, which has tall, thick, tire grabbing grass. So it's doing fantastic. The last trouble I had was I wasn't. There's so much drag on the tires that I had too much takeoff flap deflection. Too much. It was, in my opinion, interfering with the ground speed I needed to get these tires through the thick grass. There's a lot of friction and a lot of resistance. So I think that too much takeoff flaps was not letting me get the ground speed I needed. So I've gone to less takeoff flap deflection now, and I think that'll give me more ground speed, and it'll be just right. It's dang close right now, 90% there. So I went ahead and reduced the takeoff flap deflection a little bit, so I think she'll be 100% fantastic. She'll have all the ground speed she needs, I think, including because I went to 100% elevator throws on my elevator, right? That's the other thing I needed. To get these big tires through the deep, thick grass, I needed to reduce my takeoff flap lift a little bit to give me more ground speed to get through and moving fast in the grass. And then I needed full up elevator deflection, 100%, to get myself up as quickly as possible. And same thing when I'm landing. She wants the nose over because the grass wants to grab them wheels and tires, not as much as it would the stock ones. So again, I use 100% flap deflection. As soon as the wheels touch the grass, I go to and maintain 100% up elevator deflection, and at the same time I maintain a constant